Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, I'm super excited because we have another amazing guest for you. So my guest today is a primetime television host of C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and an executive perspectives on C-Suite TV and a business podcast host of All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on C-Suite Radio. He is a global business celebrity, speaker, best-selling author, and chairman and CEO of C-Suite Network Home and the world's most trusted network of C-Suite leaders. He's also a well-traveled speaker, former Fortune 100 CMO, and author of 4 best-selling books, one of which is Think Big, Act Bigger, The Rewards of Being Relentless, Running the Gauntlet, The Mirror Test, Is Your Business Really Breathing? And finally, Hero Factor, How Great Leaders Transform Organizations and Create Winning Cultures. He is one of the most compelling figures in business today and inductee into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. As well as a leading business expert, he is frequently cited in Forbes, Success, and Mashable. So I kind of gave them a bit of a clue about who you were in a bio, but so a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Jeffrey Hayzlett. How are you, Jeffrey?
Good. And I am the perfect failure. So I'm glad to be on the show. You should have my picture up as a poster child for, for every entrepreneur that's listening in, because I have had my share of failures.
Yeah, but I'm going to counter, but you've had your fair share of successes, and I'm sure.
Absolutely. How can you have successes if you don't have failures? You can't be a maestro and not play a lot of bad notes, my friend. Yeah. So, absolutely. I mean, and everybody would ask me, that's one of the questions. You might have to ask that question, but I'm going to throw it out there. Somebody will say, hey, what's the biggest failure you've ever had? And I said, I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Meaning there's always one. There's always a bigger one. I can't, and half the time I can't even remember the failures because I just move on.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So I wish I met you before I start this podcast. Maybe I wouldn't be doing this podcast now. It's part of a failure. That's why I'm doing it. But I love your acknowledgement that these are part of a journey. If you don't, because there will be people, I love what you just said, because there will be people potentially listen to this, that the idea of exploring something that they've got in their minds, that they've had in their heads, they may have written it down in their journal or something, but they've just not executed it because of fear and the fear of failing.
Yeah, well, you can't have that. You got to, a big thing has been, for at least pre-COVID, for a lot of like Bay Area, startups, and a lot of startups in general, but it really comes out of the Bay Area, where sometimes they're a little loony about stuff. But anyway, it came out, this whole thing about everybody listing their failures, and that was a big thing. And everybody's always talks about fail first, fail fast. And that's a big thing, fail fast. But I think, no, bullshit. No. Succeed fast, man. Failing sucks. Let's just be very clear. Nobody wakes up every morning and says, I can't wait to fail, right? But if no matter what you're doing, you're going to fail anyway. You're going to make mistakes. You just can't, you can't as I said, a maestro without playing a lot of bad notes. You can't be a great CEO without making a lot of mistakes. You can't be a great entrepreneur without making mistakes. That's just the nature of the thing. You can't be a great footballer, at Manchester United, they make mistakes. People make mistakes. And for the most part, for the most things we need to think about for what we do, especially in business, no one's going to die. So put it in perspective, dude. That's what I try to tell people. Just put in perspective of what we're doing, how we're doing it. you should always look to minimize mistakes, but don't let that don't let that also, rule your day, rule your business, rule your life, that you might make a mistake. I'd rather just keep swinging. I'm building this thing called the C-suite network right now, and I'm building the plane as I'm flying it. Right.
Yeah.
My goal is just never crash it, but I'll lose, I'll lose a part from here or there. It might fall off that plane as I'm flying it, but but the key thing is I still got it in air.
Yeah. I think the point that I always think is important when we have these failures, mishaps, that I agree with you, we don't want these, but we have to keep on going. If we've got something we want to do, we've got to enjoy it. We've got to go after it with vigor, excitement, energy. There's probably lots of other analogies that I can use. But when we do have the mistakes or the setbacks, whatever you want to call it, there's loads of valuable information there that we've got that we didn't have before. So there might be things that we can rule out because that hasn't worked, or there might be some things that haven't worked that we know we might actually immediately know why that didn't work, and immediately we might have a point of inquiry or a point of investigation about how we fix that and about how we move forward. But without failing, we could never know that. And I guess the idea is that when we make mistakes or have failures, we improve, we become better. We can't improve, become better without having failures or mistakes.
And trying it, as you well know. I mean, and I think that's the key thing, and trying different things. Look, I live out in the country, and way out in the country on a little ranch, and I drive into my office, which is like 14 miles away. And my wife will sometimes drive me because I'll get on the phone and I'm not good driving and talking on the phone. I shouldn't do that, right? So they always try to make sure that I don't do that. So
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good safety first, right?
Like that. So and safety conscious podcast episode as well.
There you go. I love it. And so a lot of times my wife will drive me and I'll say, hey, go this way. She goes, no, this way is faster. I'll say, oh, really? Let's try it. And it's okay, so I'll go one way, she goes this way. We both go a different way now, both of us, and we both swear that our way is faster, although I have timed my way and mine is at least 4 minutes faster. So, and that's not with me rushing, right? It's just me driving normal, hitting all the red lights and stoplights and things that you do along the way. But if you don't try, if you don't risk, if you don't, push it, no, they have a saying in business, or sports, no pain, no gain.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You have to have a little bit of that, and that's what life's about. We all go through hard knocks. I mean, our life is full of hard knocks. I mean, we learn love through grief. We learn, so many different things through adversity, and being in business and making and having failures, messing up, goofing, doing it incorrectly. And, there's ways, and there's different ways to do it. And my way might be different than your way. It might not be the best way, but it's my way. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. And you have to come to grips with that in the business when you're doing business. I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career, over $25 billion in transactions. Wow. I'm a former Fortune 100 officer. My last company oversaw a budget, $182 billion in sales, $17 billion just in marketing spend. I had 7,500 marketing people work for me. I remember getting that job thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I didn't know what to do. I was 45 at the time when I stepped into that big job, and at the top of my career and everything else in terms of, really stepping in. But I'd never done anything that big before, never, and didn't know what to do. And I remember looking around and saying, somebody ought to fix this place, somebody ought to do something. And then I realized it was me, but didn't know what to do. Right.
Can I pause you there? So that was Kodak, right? Was that Kodak?
Yeah, that was Kodak. I was chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak. Yeah.
It's a massive company. So massive. So I've, like everybody listening, everybody will know Kodak and would have been a customer. I'm pretty sure of that. So what was that like?
It was crazy, that man.
Budget, I mean, that responsibility.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, I could sit in my office. I could see, like 14 square miles of office complex, hundreds of buildings, literally, at the desk of the man who started the company, right? So, in the 1880s. So it's like, very iconic brand, but my job there was to help turn around the company, to help change it from what it was to what it was going to be, or try to be. Whether or not we had the runway or not, sometimes you don't succeed. I wasn't able to succeed. I was able to help, stop it or slow it down as much as possible and still get it to the right kinds of place. But the legacy of the past, was catching up to us, and it was really hard to be able to fix that. But it was, but to sit in meetings where you're making life-changing decisions for people and for, and ending life of products like Kodachrome. I ended the life of product of Kodachrome, which was, an iconic brand, but, had served its time, had 188 innovations, but, during its product life. But yet it was time to say goodbye to that product after decades and decades and decades and decades and decades of it being around. So yeah, it was tough. It was tough to, to get everybody to change the mood. And that was a big part of what I had to do, was change the mood of the company. And you walk in and everybody goes, "Hey, make it like it used to be." Well, I can't make it like it used to be, because it's not like it used to be. I'm new. Yeah, I'm new. Like I can't be like I was when I was 20. I'm better looking now, right? It's like, so I can't do that, So, and that was, try to get people past that. We're not going to be the old, we're going to be the new. So what's the new? And we're not a box of film or a roll of film. We're about, make, manage, and move images and information. We're emotional technology, whether it's in film or it's in a digital camera. Let's talk about that. Let's get to that. Let's understand that, because, if your whole life and the whole essence of the business is around that we're a roll of film, hell, I can't get you there.
Yeah.
I can't, we can't, because that's where you're so focused in on that, going down that rat hole, as opposed to saying, hey, let's honor our past and let's honor what got us there and bring that forward as a legacy into whatever we're going to be, like a family. You don't be guided by what your family did or what, your father is or your mother is, but by what you're going to be. And that becomes the new dynamic of the family. And that's the way brands should be. Brands are nothing but promises delivered. Your job is to figure out what that promise is and then deliver that.
Okay. So that's an interesting premise. So when we set our brand identity, should we really be thinking about, what are we looking to do, and then promise, when we make the commitment, the promise, then we go and deliver?
Yeah, absolutely. So when most people are focused in on brands, this is a really great thing, Paul, to talk about, because you're talking about brand identity. Well, what's a brand identity? Those are attributes of a brand. A brand started years ago as something that we put on a cow or a horse out in the Old West in the United States. We started it. And, you see a cowboy and they're out there branding the cattle. It became the ownership on the side of a bovine, and then got transferred. This essence of brand got transferred to a corporation company. What's the brand? Well, it's not the logo. It's not the Coca-Cola red or the Kodak yellow or the Nike swoosh. Those are just elements of the brand that you want to make sure you have in there. But what you really want to know is, what problem are you solving?
Okay.
What is it that you're delivering for a customer or for the people or the experience, right? So that's the core. And my son helped me focus that, because I always said a brand is a promise delivered, but it's really around what problem are we solving. So every time I sit down with any new company or myself, or even a meeting, even in meetings, I sit down, what are we solving today? What's the else? Why are we here for this? What's the purpose that we're here for this particular meeting? Just like for me to be a great guest on your that's my job, is to be a great guest for you. So I spend my time, I study, I get ready. I listen to some of your past podcasts. I know what you're going to kind of ask me. I know what the theme of, I know what your cadence is. All those things I need to learn in order to do a great job and deliver on my brand to your brand, right? Yeah. And so we need to spend the time to do that. So when you think about a brand, you really want to start focusing in on not the attributes, But first of all, what is the problem we're solving? Once we have that, then you can start to focus then on what does that, what's that look like? What's the essence of it? What's the feel, the tactical things? What are the avatars, all the other pieces that you'd want to put around that? So as we build, like, say, for instance, C-Suite Network, this trusted network of C-Suite executives to help you accelerate your business by using your content to drive, content, which then leads to community, which leads to commerce, then we say, then it's got to be C-Suite worthy. It's got to look like this C-Suite. Right?
Get it.
Yeah.
Get it. So, question that springs to mind, just as and it's going to lead into C-Suite Network. So, when people are developing businesses, everyone will have an idea, I guess, and it will be a business of a certain type, and they will move forward with it. But in terms of actually setting that brand or identifying your brand in terms of what problem you solve, where does that get lost for you, in your opinion, or can it be at different places? Because I would imagine that there's people listening to this that will probably thinking, well, we probably spent 6 months focusing on a logo, but we haven't really gone into the minutia of the exact definitive.
I'd spend more time on that than the logo and the look and the feel and all that stuff. I mean, even your website, you don't even have to be pretty to be good. I mean, how many times have we gone to a restaurant that doesn't look that good, but it's a dive or a pub that's your favorite pub, and it's a dive. It's terrible, but it's great because the essence of what they deliver is so good that you overlook all that other stuff, right? I mean, in fact, some of the greatest restaurants and some of the greatest businesses, or whatever, and people are not the prettiest, right? So focus more on what is it that I'm trying to get accomplished. If you can do that, if you can figure that out, that's where the value is. That's where real value is created, and value can be extracted is by focusing on what your needs are. What am I solving for you? Because if I solve problems for you, you're willing to give me money. And you're willing to stick with me. You're willing to follow me and everything else. I give you a good example. And by the way, a lot of companies, we think we know what it is rather than spending the time. When I was at Kodak and we were selling color printers, inkjet printers, and we went out, I used to put on a blue shirt and go to Best Buy and work at Best Buy. I mean, I'm the chief marketing officer, one of 5 corporate officers, one of 500 of the most elite officers in the world, at that time. And here I am in a blue shirt working at an electronics store, seeing what people say about our printers and what they say about HP printers and Canon printers and other ones, just to see what it is they're really talking about. Because my people would come to me and say, well, this is what they're saying. I said, oh, really? How do you know? Well, this is what we know. And I said, well, I'm going to go find out. And I would go work in the stores and literally, service customers. And you get a good sense. Let me tell you real quick what they like, what they didn't like. And I found out, and this is how I got the word, they didn't like the ink model, right? I'm talking about where you go and get an inkjet printer for almost for free, but the ink is locked up behind the counter. And they used to call it, and one of the customers called it pricey ink. And then the woman said it stinks, and that became our pricey ink stinks.
All right.
And that became one of our campaign slogans, and so, but you get that by what's the problem I'm trying to solve, and I thought that was really that, that's the kind of stuff where, when you start to build a personal brand, like you yourself, Paul, and other thought leaders that lead podcasts on C-Suite Radio, we have 450 podcasts on C-Suite Radio today, and, growing at 170%, 50 million downloads. And it's just amazing. But when I started out and left Kodak and I did my own television show on Bloomberg and CBS here in the States, I started to build my own little, brand of Jeff Hayzlett. Yeah. And so we sit down as a team and said, well, what should we call you? Mr. Hayzlett, what should we call you? I said, I don't know. Call me a global business celebrity. And they said, what is that? And I said, whatever we tell people it is. Right. So it was about setting expectations of what that looked like. That became a brand attribute, and then it got to be known because I'm, in the middle of South Dakota, which is in the middle of where they film Dances with Wolves, I'm known as this cowboy, and I was a business kind of cowboy.
Okay.
So that's what we said. He's a global business celebrity and boardroom cowboy.
Yeah.
And that's who I was. That became the essence of what, some of those attributes were, and how did we deliver it? So then what do I deliver? Well, my job is you hire a guy like me if you want massive success that just drives through the wall no matter what to get it done and drives change.
So in relation to C-suite, just to touch upon that, you mentioned it earlier. So when you're connecting with clients or people that you want to give a far better appreciation of how they can develop, scale, understand what problem they're solving, are you really tuning in to the whole package in terms of what they're doing, how they can grow their brand, but also how they can be more commercially astute?
Well, you have to, because if in the end you say you're going to go out and do XYZ, like, have an audacious goal, or what I call pushing a rope, like where you're just basically almost irrational and saying, we're going to go from here way over to here, but you don't have the ability to deliver it because you don't have the manufacturing, you don't have the capital, you don't have the thing, then you're setting yourself up to fail. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be realistic in saying, if we're going to say and set this audacious goal, that we have the ability and know the steps in order to deliver, you have to be operational in terms of being able to follow that up, because otherwise you're not going to deliver on your promise, because you go out and sell all this stuff to people and then never deliver it. Now, I've been there too. I've sold millions of dollars worth of products and unfortunately had 100% failure on the product, but at least I might know that. And then
new information, right, that you have now that you didn't have before.
Pardon?
So it's new information that you have now that you didn't have before.
Correct. But even sometimes going into it, that, let's say I'm going to sell, a camera, and I know that we typically, when we launch a new camera, I can only sell 50,000 of those in a year. I'd only normally want to, because I don't want to fail too much, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to test them out, make sure everything's right, and the packaging's right, and it doesn't get broken, the packaging. You could test all that stuff, but it's real world is when you find out the real stuff. So, and then you go out and sell 500,000 rather than 50,000. And you found out you did have a problem with the software or the firmware in the camera. Now you've exasperated that problem by 10. Not good, because now instead of 50,000 pissed off customers or upset customers, you've got 500,000 of them. Now, and then if you go from 500,000, which you should have done that in the second year, to 5 million, which is indeed one of the couple of times I did this, then I've got even more problems. But I knew about that ahead of time, so I had to think about how to mitigate those problems. Like, like if they open up the box wrong and took out the item inappropriate and touched it or grabbed it, it would result in 100% failure of the product.
Really? Wow.
Okay, so what do? You know that that's the case, then right on the box, before you open this box, read this, go to this website, right? And you build those kind of things so that you try to avoid the failure that you're about to have and mitigate that risk as much as possible.
Yeah. I was listening to something yesterday that somebody was talking about. They cited McDonald's as an example. So essentially what they were trying to convey is that why the operational side of a business is so important, because McDonald's, potentially people would say they can make a better burger. Most people would assume that they can make a better burger, but could they have a business of the size of McDonald's? And the person was citing where they're really good at McDonald's is how they operationalize their business. The burger is probably not I'm not going to say it's
not the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah, I would if you and I meet in South Dakota and we go to McDonald's, I'm all in. But there are not, we can get burgers that we might prefer, highly likely.
Yeah, like a lamb burger. You get a lamb burger, and anyway, or a beef burger. There's a lot of different burgers, right? You gotta have one with egg. You can't get one with egg at McDonald's. But there's things I like about McDonald's. They're also one of my clients, so I like them as well. Yeah. But I also like to I like different things, right? So it's okay.
Okay, so just something that I wanted to get into, a bit of plagiarism here, a term that or a phrase that you've used, title of this particular episode. So content is king, activation is queen, and context is the kingdom. So I love that, but I don't know what it means. So I was keen to see whether you could elaborate for me.
Yeah, it's, so today it's about, it used to be that we could market our businesses in a way that people would come and find us, and we had this way of being able to draw to them, or we shouted out information, or brand slogans or commercials. Well, that stuff is gone away in terms of the way that we perceive information. And so content's the way to go. Content drives community, and then community drives commerce. So if you want to become a beloved and loved brand, if you want to do better than everybody else, you have to drive content. If you're in Basingstoke, or if you're in St. Louis, there might be 40 dry cleaners. How are you supposed to get noticed? How do you get noticed as opposed to all the other ones out there? Well, you could do Google ads and those kinds of things, but even then, you don't know who's the best. You don't know which one should be the one for you because of their logo, because of some false or true Yelp recommendations. So if you're that particular dry cleaner, you need to become known as the doctor of spots. Right? Like, you bring your spots to me and I will fix them. I will get you healthy. I will get you clean. I will do this. I will do that. You bring me blood stains and I will make sure they're removed, the grass stains. And so what do is you show people how to do that. Yeah. And you develop content, all right, that you then activate, that's then relevant in the context of someone needs someone to take blood out of a shirt, or grass stains out of their kids' jeans, or their whatever. The content is king, because you got to have great content, good content on a regular basis. Then you got to activate it. You got to get it out there so that the person that's ready to see it, but it's only in the context that it becomes relevant for that person. And so that's what that's about. And so for marketing today, you've got to do it with content. This is the game, set, match. If you're not driving content through social media, through blogs, through Twitter Spaces, through TV, YouTube, whatever, you're dead. Yeah. You're dead. I mean, the value of this podcast, Paul, right? I mean, that when you do interviews with people, and then people say, "Oh, I listened to this thing on your podcast," and da 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 da. I have a television show that's on United Airlines, Lufthansa, and lots of Aer Lingus, and a whole bunch of other shows that are out there. And I'm on Apple, Roku, Amazon Fire. I used to be on a lot of broadcasts. Excuse me, but the one place I get seen the most, or get the most comments, is on like United Airlines. Okay. I mean, people see me at a time in which they got nothing else to do. They can't be taking any phone calls. Yeah. They're not wanting to pay the extra for Wi-Fi, and they're watching my show, and boom, I got them.
Dedicated time. Yeah. And actually, I find that when I fly, depending on what sort of distance you're flying, but you might have a little bit of a snooze, you might have a little bit of relaxation, but then you want to engage the TV, then you want to watch something. And it's one of those few times where you're in that fixed environment, you can't really go anywhere, and you really just watch, you really do engage. So that's a lovely scenario where you've got that dedicated audience for that period of time, where they potentially not going to get distracted with other bits and pieces. You're not really on your phone, so you're just really focused.
Yep, and connecting, which is the case. That's the case, right? Yeah. So or when they need the information, when they most want it, you're there with the content, educating them and motivating them, inspiring them. Then that's critical in order to be able to provide the value and get more out of it for them and for you, for both. Yeah, you have to be a thought leader. I mean, I don't care whether you're brand of you or a brand of Acme, right? And you're selling a product, a widget, a service, or political candidate, the cure for disease, it doesn't make a difference. It's in the packaging. And so, and that's, but you've got to have that content. You got to be seen as the thought leader, or otherwise, you got to be seen as they always say the lead dog on the dog sled, right? Why? Because being the last dog, the view's not that good,
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think content for me is a couple of things. I think it shows that you don't have some passion, that you care about what you're doing. And also, if you don't have content, if you're not putting stuff out there that is relevant, then how can people really know who you are? How can they know who you are against your thousands upon thousands of competition that are competing for the same potential space as you? To me, it's an interesting one, because I think I don't have any stats on this, but I think there's probably a reasonable proportion of businesses within a multitude of sectors that content is massively neglected, or maybe even isn't touched.
Right.
And I don't know whether it's fear or whether it's maybe a little bit of neglect. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know whether you've got any opinions on that.
Well, well, fear is a big factor, and why do we neglect? Because we're afraid,
Okay.
or we don't care, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of other probably things that there, but fear is one of the things. In fact, I talk about this a great deal. I used to have a television show on Bloomberg called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I took you into the boardrooms of companies that 99% of the people who work at the company never get to walk into. So into those offices, and if you all know where they're at, and you can't even get past security, even if you work for the company. So because it's that holy space of C-suiters that that's for whatever reason. But and one of the things I've learned is that there's like 4 or 5 things, failure businesses fail, reasons why businesses fail. One of those is fear. We're afraid.
Yeah.
We're afraid, and it's inherent in who we are to be different, to do something that's different, do something we haven't tried before, or whatever it is. To be a beginner is a hard thing for people to do. And so, we want to just take a pill for it. We want to know the instant fix. And but we have to go through those processes, being radically transparent, taking risk, those are factors that cause us to fail.
Yeah. So for people listening that this is resonating with, and they're sitting down there, they're probably listening to this and thinking, you know what, we're not putting out content. There are areas in our business that the business isn't achieving. Even if it's doing well, it's not achieving its objective if you're not putting content out, regardless of how you grade.
Well, by the way, let me be clear. If you're not putting content out, then somebody else is controlling you and your message.
Yeah. Okay.
With content, I can start to get what I want out the way I want it to the people that I would like to have them see it. If you're not putting content out, then they're finding you through other means on other people's rented land.
Okay.
And I would much rather own my own ranch than rent somebody else's and have people drive by when they have the time to drive by or whatever. So it's about driving your own destiny, and that otherwise you're, no offense to Google, but you're beholden to Google, you're beholden to the search engines, you're beholden to other people to bring them to you. And when that happens, you lose out.
Yeah. When algorithms change or things evolve, then we're pretty screwed.
Yeah, but content, whether it's a podcast, it's a blog, it's a YouTube video, it's an OTT streaming video, a TV show, which we do as well, whether it's a book, an article, a webinar, a workshop, a challenge. I mean, let's go create all these different things that you could do, whether as a thought leader, as a brand, or a brand of you, either one. So, because I believe in every officer of the companies, and people in the company, sell you sell the company, sell the company, you sell you. You can't separate the two. When I look at you, I see your company. That's what I see. When I see the CEO of Google, of Apple, of Nike, of Coca-Cola, I see the company. Same thing. So, and you can't separate. It's hard to separate the two. I mean, Michaels and these are companies in the United States. Well, like La Pret. I was in New York the other day, and I love that place. And it's a UK institution, and they tried to come over to the U.S. Didn't win as good in that battle as they should have in that race, and mostly because they didn't know what problem they were solving. They were just trying to beat Starbucks. Well, no. So if you're going to beat Starbucks, then you better serve American food. You can't serve a curry sandwich in the United States. You got to mix it up and change it up. They're doing a better job of it. And by the way, I think they're a great brand. I love that place. I absolutely love that place. And because it's good food, it's healthy food, it's all the good stuff that many of the other fast casual places in the United States don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask a question around this content, around the title of this show. Actually, content is king, activation is queen, and context is kingdom. So when we're looking to execute that process or that method, are we doing that in relation to the problem that we solve? So should there be a nice match there?
Yeah, without question. I mean, you should lead people to make the connection. You don't have to advertise it. You don't have to say it. You don't have to say, hey, come buy from me.
Yeah.
But they should understand when you have this problem, I should be able to drive enough hints into it, right?
Yeah.
I think the consumer or anyone that's listening, consuming the content gets it that you're doing it, right? Or you want to do it or can do it if you're showing people how to do it. If you're the doctor of spots and you're showing them how to do it, well, then I know you're the guy, right? And and if you're doing it from the counter of your dry cleaning location, then I know you have a store. Or if you say, hey, come by my place. If you got a tough stomach, come by my place. Let me show you. I'll just show you for free how to do this yourself. If you really want to do it yourself. But if you don't want to do that, you can give it to me and I'll take care of it. I think they get the essence of the context. So you have to you have to deliver that and show them that you can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. When I give a speech on stage, I'll say things like, when I'm on the board of directors of a company and I'm hoping to lead it, then I serve on boards. And I'll put the idea in your head that as an entrepreneur, I can get Jeff Hayzlett on my board. If I say, and when I work with clients on solving this problem and I work through this and like I'm, at DocuSign or whatever company I might have been or helping, then I can hire him to do this, right? That's the putting into the context, into the context, right? Of how you can do that and how it might represent, or give a scenario for someone with a problem that they might know that they have or didn't even know they have, or can anticipate. Right now I've been thinking about cybersecurity a great deal about that. What happens if someone hacks into our system and so forth? Well, it's someone telling me about those horror stories that's got me scared that I might need to go do that. So now I need to look for the right kinds of people to get that done.
So for people that are listening now and are putting out content or have got content out there, if it doesn't match the problem they solve, then they need to rethink and think about their content again.
Well, and you have to go and look for, maybe different scenarios of the things that you have. So that gives you more content to be able to talk about, right? Okay. So it's not just cybersecurity. What's that mean? Okay, if they were to, like a phishing email, and that causes them to get a virus on your computer. What about hijacking? Where they take the hijack your information, grab your server. What if they put all malware or whatever? I mean, all kinds of different things. So you would do content in different things so that different people can come to you based on different things. But the real key thing it's cybersecurity of some kind. Right?
Okay.
It's protecting the network, protecting your information, protecting your livelihood. So you would want to show different examples of how that. So when people have that problem, so they can put in context, they know that they can turn to you.
Okay. So there could be, because I guess your audience can be made up of different people that have different challenges, but it all relates to the problem you solve.
In different ways. Yeah. I mean, right now because we all think there might be some kind of economic downturn. Well, okay, great. What is that? How big is it? is it going to be a real, and even the experts don't know, is it a hard landing, soft landing, all those kind of things when it comes to an economic crisis. So I put out a piece that calls "Never Waste a Good Crisis."
Yeah,
whatever the crisis
about that. So so please expand. Sorry.
Well, I mean, so even during the darkest times of all of our business downturns, have been some of the greatest brands have come forth. Unicorns, like during the last financial crisis in 2008, what was born? Airbnb. Who would have thought 20 years ago you could go rent someone's house and sit naked on their couch and you would pay them for it, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, or you would put your daughter, your daughter would be getting into a cab, or not a cab, into an Uber at 1 o'clock in the morning after she's been out clubbing all night, and she doesn't know the person that's taking her. Right? I mean, come on. These are businesses that were born out of adversity and created. I mean, for instance, the reason that Uber got started was the three founders were out drinking at Le Web in Paris, and they were out past 2 o'clock in the morning, and the transit shut down, metro shut down, so they couldn't get a ride back, and they didn't know how to speak French, so they couldn't call a limo, and cabs are shut down because nobody works after 2 o'clock in France. Boom, and it's shut down and it's gone, and these guys had to walk like 4 or 5 miles back, and they were mad, and so they came up with the idea called Uber.
And that goes right back to your scenario. What problem are you solving? They found the problem.
Oh, and it's brilliant. I mean, they didn't say, "Oh, let's just make a better taxi cab."
Yeah.
And then now they've got a user economy, use economy, best use economy that spun out all of this industries. I mean, now you got Uber Eats, you got Grubhub, you got all these different things that deliver and do for you that you never thought we would have, and now people are renting trucks now, and people come and deliver a truck to your house. And there's a business in the United States called Kite, where I can call it up. It will meet me at the airport, give me my car, and then they'll come pick it up when I'm done. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay.
For like $30 a day. It's crazy.
Not familiar with that one.
Yeah.
So question around, I'm going back to sort of a central theme that we've touched on a number of times around problems that we solve. So in a life of a business, I don't know whether you've seen this in your experience in corporate and in entrepreneurial field, that sometimes the problem might evolve in terms of the problem that we solve evolves. It might start off somewhere over here, but over the journey of a business, maybe different pivots in a business, it changes. Have you ever seen that? And do we have to be cognizant of where the business is going, where it was, and where it is today?
Yeah, you constantly got to check in. I mean, nobody change. It's change, adapt, or die. That's really what we face every day in our business. And so no one gets into a car and locks in the steering wheel or the brake or the gas pedal. You make adjustments. If you're going to go on a journey, you're going to make adjustments. If you're solving problems, you're going to continue to make adjustments to solving those problems. You might have to work a little hard on it, or let up, because if you work too hard on it, you could break it. So that's what happens every day in business. And the same thing with success, right? You got to learn to make adjustments as you're leading your success, the same way. Change, adapt, or die.
I love that. I'm going to coin that. I will reference you if I use that
By all means.
I will cite you. It's an interesting one for me as well, because I think you can have businesses where the change is difficult, or I guess the change and the adapt is difficult because you can be set in your ways, and the idea of changing feels uncomfortable. And so I think you have to have the right leaders in your business to actually help with that process, because if you don't, I think the end thing happens, you die.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game. And so you're constantly evolving, and when you get it perfect is when you need to break it.
Yeah.
And and get better. I mean, look at great athletes, what they do all the time. They break a world record, but they go for another one.
Yeah.
And the same thing should occur in business. We should be doing great things in each month, striving to break whatever we did the month before, or the day before, the week before.
Yeah. And I think adaptation, when we adapt, it's like when we talk about crisis, that I forget who it was, the CEO at, I think it was at Intel, was it Andy somebody?
Andy Grove.
Yeah. So he talks about the idea that in a crisis, you find out So I think I won't say this correctly, but in a crisis, a bad company will fail. A good company will maybe go nicely along, but a great company will grow because it will adapt.
Well, look at COVID. It's a great example, Paul. During COVID, there were businesses that grew.
Yeah.
There were 16 different categories of businesses that actually increased, like, pet foods and home improvements. And, I can keep going on, in some financial markets that there were financial institutions did very well. There was a lot of different things that grew during those time periods that, Apple and Microsoft were founded during an economic crisis in the 70s, for goodness sakes.
I had no idea.
And HP was founded during an economic crisis way back, and I can go through with car companies and others that were founded during really tough times, and look at them today. There's if you look at it as a problem, you look at it as a failure. No. Look at it as an opportunity. What can you do to help people? I mean, during the COVID on March the 13th, I remember exactly what happened. I was supposed to go on the 14th, the next day, and lead a cruise and I was supposed to be keynoting on a big cruise, a financial cruise that was going on. And then they canceled it, right? And that was the day that they shut down Disney World, Friday, March the 13th. That was the day they shut down Disney World. And I'm telling you, when they shut down Disney World, crap just got real, okay? Yeah. And so I looked at everybody and said, oh my gosh, we got to get home because they're going to shut everything down. This isn't going to be good. And on Monday, I did an op-ed thing for the New York Times, and I said, look, for people like yourself, Paul, for people like me, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I didn't know how to sew a mask, but what I could be was a business first responder. And I could sit back and say to everybody, hey, what we do is let's hunker down, let's wait it out, right? Which a lot of people were going to go do. And I said, no way. We're going to jump right into this thing. We're going to do whatever we have to do to help people be successful. We're going to be business first responders. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to survive this. We're going to thrive and drive. And that's what we used as a theme. And that's what we did at the C-Suite Network. We took this as a theme to all of our members, to millions of businesses out there, especially in the United States, and then those that were listening from around the world. This is not a time to sit back. This is a time you better put the pedal to the metal and you better get going. Because if you don't change, adapt, you will die.
Yeah. And I love that analogy, and I love the mindset, because I think sometimes it occurs to me, sometimes when I watch TV and I listen to the radio, that we almost are pushing ourselves over the cliff when we hear about a recession or a downturn. And I think that having your analogy and Andy Grove's analogy of actually there is an opportunity there, like your analogy, never waste a good crisis. Yeah. There are opportunities there, but you just have to think differently. And it's like the adapt, change, or die. So there were a couple of things that I found when I was researching you, and I just was keen to ask you about these. So you've developed a couple of really cool job titles. So chief blogger and chief listening officer. So maybe you can expand on those.
Yeah, another one I did was twanker.
Okay, so
it was twanker. It was like that was a troll on Twitter early on in Twitter, because I was very on Twitter, and there was a lot of trolls that were out there. But yeah. So yeah, I named the very first chief blogger ever. That would, no one had blog. We had bloggers, but I said, in a big company, you're going to have lots of bloggers. So how do you do this? And so I said, but you also have to have a good editorial policy, good content policy, right? And content calendars, and editorial calendars, if you're going to be a thought leader. And this is way back in 2006. And so I named the very first chief bloggers, somebody that was reflective of the community that we served. That was Jennifer Cisney. She's still Cisney. Yeah, Jennifer Cisney. She's still out there today, still doing a great job doing stuff. She's no longer at Kodak, but I named her the very first chief blogger ever. And then all the other major companies around the world started naming their, chief bloggers for their company as a result of that. So we established that. And then as we started moving into 2008, 2009, we started, Twitter's coming about, Facebook's coming about, I said, look, you really, as a company, have to have someone listening. You can't just, be, vomiting up post and information. Really, it's about listening. It wasn't up until that time period, people were talking about how many followers you have, how many likes you have, how much this, and people still do that. It's not about that. It's not about eyeballs and ears. I said it's about hearts and minds. And if you really want the essence of a really great brand, it's about capturing hearts and minds, not eyeballs and ears. Eyeballs, as fast as they come to you, as fast as they go.
Yes. Totally.
So what you want to do is build a community. And if you build that community, then they're going to stay with you. And you're going to have your ups and downs, and they're going to be okay with you when you screw up. And they're going to be okay when you're doing a great job, and that's really what you want. It's kind of like a family. And that's how you want to build that.
And to that point, just in terms of listening, how does that work sort of in real life?
Well, you want to, I do this a lot with speakers and podcasters, because we have a lot of media. And, I said, stop reading your reviews. And they go, what do you mean by that? And I go, well, everybody loves to read the reviews. I said, take the top 10% of your reviews, which are great. Things your mom writes about you, things about your biggest fans write about you. And those are the great. I mean, and most people want to concentrate on just getting those, right? But also you got to look at the bottom 10, bottom 10%. Yeah. And, because I have people who go and review my book, and a guy that says, Hayzlett is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And then I go and look at what the guy writes about, and he's a reviewer for vacuum cleaners. I mean, you're literally, the guy sucks. So why do I want to pay attention to that guy? He's a troll, and that's, so take the bottom percent, take the top percent, cast them aside. Okay. Now look at the core there, that 80%, that core group, and look at that and see what they have to say. And by listening, look, it used to be a top-down driven kind of innovation process in most companies. We'd have a calendar, and we're going to come up with a spring line and the fall line, and if you want it in the fall line, you got to make a decision by March. You got to put it in here. You got to do this, and the innovation was all driven by top-down, by the calendar, by the schedule, by people who are saying we're going to come out with 4 new lines of cameras, or 4 new this, or 4 new that. Well, why don't you listen to the customers, and they'll tell you, why don't you move the button? Why don't you do this? Can you do this? And they'll put the stuff in the comments. And then pretty soon you're crowdsourcing, you're friend sourcing all of this great information. They tell you what they want. And then your job is to give it to them. And instead of me telling you what you think you want, who am I? I don't know what I don't know, So the key is to be able to, that's what listening is about. By listening, you're able to really get that kind of that innovation and insight that you never had before.
Yeah, totally. I'm conscious of your time, so I've got a few wrap-up questions.
You bet.
I just wanted to ask, I know this show is titled My Perfect Failure, but I just wanted to ask a question about success. So can success be dangerous for a business?
Oh, totally. Hubris of success. Are you kidding me? John Collins writes about that. And there's so many other people that write about, but hubris of success. I mean, that's what almost killed Kodak. You would ask Kodak who we are, and they say you're a film company. You were never a film company. They had the only product that people would actually run back into a burning building to save. Okay. And that's amazing to have a product like that people would want to risk their life to rush back in to save something, photographs, for instance, right? Well, if you look at who they were a cross between material science and imaging science. They made great things and made them look really, really good. And they captured those things, which we know as Kodak moments, right? So what they were was they manage, they move images and information, film, moving images or still images, and they made beautiful things from that. What they did was they were an emotional technology company.
Yeah.
And that's what, that's the essence. So they forgot that. And if your success is, all around this little roll of film, that's 90% profit margins, that's one of the greatest profit margin machines of its time, and became one of the most recognizable logos and recognizable brands in the world, most favorable brand in the world. And then you ride that without innovating on it. Well, then, you're going to fail. Success will breed failure.
It must. And I love your answer on that. And it's really interesting one. I think it's a great one for people listening, because you could be in a business now where you're riding a wave in whatever sector you are, but there you've got an opportunity to really ask yourself, where are we going next? Because if you don't, then or the carpet or the rug can be pulled from under us really quickly.
I mean, if you would ask people at the turn of the century, last century before this one, do you want a car? And they would have said, no, I just want more horses.
Yeah.
And you had to convince them. So, I mean, you just have to really capture customer behavior, not change it. Don't ever change customer behavior, capture customer behavior. And if you capture customer behavior, you'll be wildly successful.
Okay.
Wildly successful.
So I'm writing all these down. So I've been taking extensive notes.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end now. So just in relation to CC Network, how can people find out more about your network? How can people work with you? How does that work?
Yeah, just go to c-suitenetwork.com. C-suites, SUITE, just like the C-suite of every major company or any company, because anybody that's a VP or higher, you just come and get active. And we're all over the world. We've got people from all over the world that are active, over 350,000 opt-in executives, 10,000 paying members, 450 podcasts, 70 some TV shows. So if you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of authors and speakers that are participating, and then of course, as I said, many thousands of executives. So that's what we're there. We're a trusted network for the C-suite executives to come together, use the platform to accelerate their business by taking content, driving community, and getting commerce.
So I'll put a link to the on the show notes. It's a really, really comprehensive website. So when people get a chance to view that, you will see a very engaged and rich resource website. So, and then lastly, how can people find you? Where's the best place for people to find you?
Just type in Hayzlett, Hayzlett, anywhere in the world, Hayzlett.com. You can find me there. You can find me on, we talked about Twitter. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. So you can't miss me. Reach out to me. And I'm the one that will respond back to you, by the way. That's what I've always done. Even though I've got like a million followers and fans, I still get back to everybody.
Okay, fantastic. And I lied a second ago. This is my last question. So last question is, if you could invite, this is the reoccurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or they might be past. Who might you invite?
I would have invited the first Hayzlett that emigrated from Ireland to the U.S., John Hayzlett, who became an officer with George Washington and died in the Battle of Trenton. I would love to have dinner with Thomas Jefferson.
Okay.
And the other one would have been Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
Who was America's first printer. And I'm an old printer, so I'd love to have those conversations. They were just amazing gentlemen. Those are one. But if I could trade all 3 of those for those, I'd pick my mom, because she's no longer alive, and I would love to have dinner with her.
Why don't we give you 4?
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you. I would love to do that. She'd be the first one on my list, but you were looking for somebody a little bit more famous than my mom. But I would love to have dinner with my mom again.
We need the feminine touch. So I think 4 would be appropriate.
There you go.
Appropriate for this particular dinner. It's been wonderful to have you on a podcast. I've learned so much from listening to you. You've got so much amazing content out there. So my learning doesn't stop with this discussion. It will continue, and hopefully we can have many more discussions. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Come join us in the C-suite. We'd love to have you.
Okay. I could be another member. Thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show, so please do share this podcast far and wide, particularly if you know people that are looking to raise their game with regards to content for their business, whether they work in a corporate business or whether they're a budding entrepreneur. And your feedback is most welcome. We're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So is that middle area. So that middle area, things you don't like, do let us know. And please send your feedback to paul@myperfectfailure.com or via the contact page on the website. So until the next time, take care for now.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.